Hi, welcome back to day 2. We're going to just jump right in and see what's happening with Benjamin. The next day, Benjamin was asked to help his aunt get ready for unexpected guests. They would be coming for Passover dinner. He went right to work carrying water jugs. "Did you hear the guest of honor is Jesus?" said a servant girl. Benjamin's eyes opened wide. Imagine to serve such an important man. He must work hard and do his very best. 2 of Jesus' friends came to help, and Benjamin listened as they talked of Jesus. Oh, they loved him so much. Soon Jesus arrived and the supper began. If Benjamin listened carefully, he could hear some of their words. But what did Jesus mean when he said the wine was like his blood and would be spilled, and the bread was to be broken like his body? It made no sense. Then Jesus said someone would betray him. Benjamin smiled. He wasn't worried. He knew that Judas would prevent this. After supper, Benjamin found a broken cup. He saved it to remember the night when he served Jesus. Later, Jesus and his friends left to pray. Benjamin wanted to pray too. He followed at a distance, watching as they finally stopped in a garden. Benjamin sat beneath an olive tree and broke off a twig. He couldn't hear Jesus, but he knew he was praying. Benjamin prayed too, and as he prayed, he rubbed the twig between his hands. Before long, his eyelids grew heavy, and he soon fell asleep. Loud yelling startled Benjamin. He leaped up in time to see soldiers taking Jesus away. "Stop!" he cried. "You can't take him. He hasn't done anything." "Shh, boy," said one of Jesus' friends, holding Benjamin back. "What's wrong?" asked Benjamin. "Why are they taking him?" "They want to question him." Benjamin pulled away. "Why didn't you stop them?" But the man just shook his head and walked away. All of Jesus' friends were gone now. Benjamin saw the smooth twig in his hand. "Dear God, please take care of my friend Jesus." He prayed as he walked. At home, he placed the broken cup and the twig in his box. So we just read in our story that Benjamin has been working to help prepare the room where Jesus and his disciples would gather together and celebrate the Passover meal. It was customary in those days that when people entered into a home, that a servant would come and wash their feet, because they didn't have shoes like we did. They didn't have boots or tennis shoes, and all of their streets were made of dirt. They weren't paved like ours. So you can imagine that their feet would get really dirty and smelly. So it was customary for when they came into a home, a servant would come, bring a bowl of water like this, and they would wash the feet of the people, of the guest. Well, before the meal started, Jesus did a very strange thing. He went and got the bowl of water. And he went to each disciple and he kneeled down at their feet and he started to wash their feet. Well, when he got to Peter, Peter was like, "Lord, what are you doing? I should be washing your feet." But Jesus said, "No, I'm teaching you a lesson, that we come to serve others, not to be served." So he was teaching his disciples to do that, to serve the people. And it was a very beautiful and humbling thing to have Jesus clean their feet. And then here's a picture of them at the table. And they didn't sit at chairs around tall tables like we do today. They would be reclining at a table and kind of stretched out. And Jesus looked at his friends and he was going to be trying to explain to them what is going to be happening. And so part of the meal involved some bread. And if you notice, it's kind of flat bread. It's not like sandwich bread or thick bread we might have at our dinner. It was flat bread, unleavened bread. And he took the bread and he gave thanks to God, the Father. And then he broke the bread and he said, "This bread represents my body that's going to be broken for you. He was telling the disciples, hey, this is coming up. I'm going to go to the cross and I'm going to die for you guys. This is my body. And every time you eat of it, I want you to remember what I'm getting ready to do. And so he passed the bread, and each of them took a bite of the bread. Then he took the wine, and he said, this wine represents my blood that's going to be shed for you on the cross. You see, Jesus knew what was coming. He knew that in just a few short hours, he would die for each of us. And he said, this wine, represents his blood. Take and drink of it. And then the Bible tells us that after they ate, they sang a hymn. Maybe like, Jesus loves me. That's what we might sing. And then he looked at Judas, because remember, Judas was the one that took the money and was going to turn in Jesus to the leaders. And he looked straight at Judas and he said, go, do what you have to do. The other disciples didn't understand. They thought maybe he was going to take care of the money or something. But Judas knew, and he ran out of the room. Well, then Jesus and his disciples went to a garden, and that garden was called Gethsemane. And when I was in Israel last year, I got to go to the garden. Maybe not the actual garden, but around the same place where Jesus would have gone. And he went to pray, and he took the disciples with him. And he left part of his disciples over here, and he took Peter, James, and John, and he said, come with me further. And he said, stay, and I want you to pray for me, because he knew what was going to happen. So he left Peter, James, and John here, and then he went alone to pray. And he prayed the most powerful prayer that any of us could ever pray. He said, Father, not what I want, but what you want me to do. That is what I will do. So he prayed that, and then he went back to find Peter, James, and John. You know what they were doing? Their bellies were full. It was late at night, and they had fallen asleep. Oh no, and he woke them up, and he said, guys, couldn't you stay awake and pray for me? I need you to pray for me. So he goes back again by himself. And again, he knows what's coming. He knows the pain that he's going to go through. But again, he prays with all his might, Lord, not what I want, but what you want me to do, I will do. And he goes back to Peter, James, and John. And guess what? Guess what they're doing again? They're sleeping again. Guys, he wakes them up and goes, guys, can't you stay awake? Please, I need you to pray for me. So he goes back, third time. And can you say it with me? What did he say? He said, God, not what I want, but what you want me to do. And he goes back to the disciples. And before he could wake them up again, he hears a noise, and there's someone coming into the garden. It's soldiers led by Judas. Judas has brought them to arrest Jesus. And he goes up to Jesus because he's told the soldiers, you'll know who Jesus is when I go up to the one and kiss him on the cheek. So he goes up to Jesus, Rabbi, teacher, and kisses him on each side. And then the soldiers know that's the one they're going to arrest. But wait a minute. Has Jesus ever done anything wrong? Does he deserve to go to jail? No, the Bible tells us that Jesus never, ever did anything wrong. This was all a part of the plan. So they take Jesus away, and his disciples flee. Well, before that, Peter, I love Peter, he sometimes doesn't always think, but Peter grabs out his sword and he cuts off one of the soldiers' ears, and the soldier's going, ah! You know what Jesus does? Jesus goes up to the soldier and places his hand on his ear, and magically his ear reappears. And Jesus looks at Peter and he says, put away your sword. This is all a part of God's plan. And then the soldiers tie his hands, bind his hands, and then take him away. And that's where we end with today's story. So now we have 2 more treasures that we're going to put into our treasure box. So let's see what they are. Does anybody know what color this is? Is it lavender or a light purple? Let's see what this is. Oh, what is it? Are you opening up yours too? What did you find in there? Is it a cup? What does the cup remind us of? Remember? His blood, the wine that represented Jesus's blood that he had at the dinner. And the bread represented what? His body that would be broken for him. So I'm going to put my cup in my treasure box. You can put yours back in your treasure box. And then, what do you think is in this one? It's the next part of our story. Let's see what it is. What color is it first? Is it orange? Yeah. Okay, let's see what it is. Open yours up. What's in it? It's praying hands, and I'll show you the picture. There's the picture of Jesus praying. And do you remember that prayer that he prayed? Can you pray it with me right now? I'm going to put it in my treasure box. He said, not what I want, Lord, but what you want me to do. And how many times did he pray that? 1, 2, 3 times he prayed that. And the Bible said that he was praying so earnestly that he was literally sweating drops of blood. So I know today it's getting kind of sad, and tomorrow may be even sadder, but that's not the rest of the story. The ending of the story is wonderful. So we'll have to just hold on till then, okay? So I will see you next time, and we'll have day 3 of our treasures.